Turns out, of all the things in life, if you were to categorize them by difficulty, perhaps the most difficult thing to do as a business owner is to figure out, how do I market my products? How do I market my services? It's an ocean of noise, and I don't know where to start. My friend said I should be on Facebook. I should just be doing ads on Facebook or TikTok or Twitter or what have you. Turns out it's very complicated. So today's guest, Brian Loebig, is, well, one of the most fascinating marketing gurus I've come across as of late. And we're going to dive into two categories of topics, let's say. Now, this is loosely defined. That's intentional. So listeners, if you're looking for some help with your marketing execution, some ideation and the like, this is the show for you. Now, warning, warning in air quotes, we are going to get into some technical weeds, let's say, and those weeds are where we can find some of the rubies in the field, so to speak. So if you don't like technicals and deep stuff, getting into sitemaps, XML, sitemap, excuse me, I don't know why I'm dying over here. Hold on. Okay, I can breathe. Yay. Exciting. Anyway, the first half of the show is going to be lighter topics, and then we're going to get into some technicals. So stick around to the end if you enjoy the idea of entertaining and learning about all things marketing within both of those domains. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest today, Brian Loebig. You have already heard about him in the bio. Fascinating human. Brian, thanks for being on the show. How are you?
Happy to be here, Austin.
What many people don't know is Brian is also the king of bluegrass. And come out and see one of his shows. He is a mandolin artiste, you might say. So quite a fascinating individual. Anyway, all right. So we have these categories that we've carved out, light topics and some technical topics. Why don't we start with the shallow end of the pool with the light topics? So where should we start? Over to you.
Maybe we could talk about kind of a unique concept, but fairly easy to implement, which is personal branding SEO.
Love it. Okay, let's hit it.
So personal branding. So people are often familiar, if they're in the web space, if you have a website, if you have a small business, they're familiar with SEO, right? Search engine optimization. But there's also kind of a offshoot of that, which is called the personal branding SEO. And so that kind of creates a marriage between your personal brand and getting visible on the internet. And so I like to think of that idea as a kind of low-hanging fruit for a small business that doesn't have a budget. That literally what they have in their pocket is time. They don't have money. And so the best thing to do with small business, and this goes for almost any kind of business, beauty salons, and as well as, other kinds of online, in-person, brick and mortar businesses. You start with the resources they're available, the plethora of resources that are available on the internet for creating free kind of traffic. And so some of your first initial traffic is going to be from these online resources. And so and you can really do that through your own personal brand. So having a podcast like this podcast that we're on today is actually a great way to increase your personal brand. You don't even have I'm on this podcast. I don't have a podcast, but I'm, lucky enough to be on Austin's podcast. And so that actually increases my own personal brand and my own visibility on the internet without me even having a website, without me having my own podcast. I'm sure Austin's going to put some show notes in there and a link back to my website that creates significant SEO value for my own personal brand and visibility. And so personal branding, there's really a bunch of key things you can do to maximize and expand your own personal brand, even if you don't have a website, even if you're not to the point of being able to build a website yet. You want me to go into more details?
Of course. Please do.
So for example, if you don't have the money to shell out to a web developer right away, you can start off with a free personal branding website like about.me. It's a free platform. It's like a one-pager. I actually use it myself. I own a marketing agency, but I have one of these free about.me personal branding websites. And I actually like to send people there when I'm in online networking groups. Instead of just sending them to loebigink.com, I'll send them to about.me/Brian Loebig. And so that if you go to that URL, you'll see all kinds of little, you'll see links to all my social media. You'll see links to several websites I manage. And it's a way for people to connect with me the way they want to connect. So if somebody's a big Twitter person, they'll connect with me on Twitter. If they're more of a LinkedIn guru, they'll connect with me there. If they want to see what's going on with my business or my projects or my nonprofits, there's different opportunities for them to connect in the way they want to connect. And that little personal branding website actually gets indexed by Google. So it gives you a little SEO value, a little personal branding SEO. And so that's one of the places you can start with, even if you don't have a website. And of course, step two, the second major chunk of personal branding SEO would be signing up for the most popular social media platforms. And you want to sign up and get involved with social media where your customers are hanging out, right? So if you provide beauty services to millennials and new brides, Facebook might not be the first place you go. It tends to be an older demographic now, right? So Instagram would be better, even TikTok, even better. Go to set up those social media profiles to increase your personal brand. And the way you do that is be very consistent. Use the same headshot across all those platforms, right? So you want to kind of create that personal brand that's consistent throughout the internet, so that people start seeing your face everywhere. They see you on LinkedIn, they see you on TikTok, they see your headshot on Facebook, et cetera. And those are all free platforms. You can create some significant reach and visibility for your personal brand by just optimizing and claiming all those social media profiles.
Can I pause you there? Because as I'm thinking about personal branding, I don't know why I'm dying today. My God. Listeners, if I die on the show today, I'm so sorry. I appoint Brian to be the next host of the Body Beauty Show if I croak on the show today.
Take a drink of water.
Yeah. Well, I'm drinking pre-workout here today. My birthday was yesterday, so I had a bit of a rowdy night. So we're slamming pre-workout to stay alive. In any case, as I hear you talking about personal branding, my first thought is, well, Brian, let's say God, this could apply to anybody. I've been in the spa space for 20 years. I'm just starting. I don't know what my personal brand is. I don't know what I am, who I am, what I want to be, etc. And I'm wondering if you could talk to or speak to how we even develop our own, it's something like identity. And I don't mean to go off the rails here to some sort of like realm of psychotherapy or something like that. But I do want to drop as a perhaps an anchor here that we can then riff off of to explore, well, how do we even develop a personal brand? Now, yes, I'm a philosophy major. So if you don't like philosophy, listeners, I'm sorry, but bear with me. I think this is gold because this might help you architect your own branding. So this is a quote from Nietzsche, and it's this: giving style to one's character, a great and rare art. It is exercised by those who see all the strengths, keyword there, and weaknesses of their own natures, and then comprehend them in an artistic plan until everything appears as art and reason, and even their weakness delights the eye. So I'm wondering if there's some sort of relationship to this concept of taking an inventory of your own self, and then, let's say, whiteboarding that, putting that on the screen, and then plucking from that and fashioning up some sort of package that is you as you're attempting to project value into the world through your spa services, et cetera. Because in some sense, literally, the body contouring specialists that operate different devices, whatever it may be, cryoskin sculpture, M-Sculpt, Cool Sculpting, whatever, they're effectively taking a block of marble and creating their own statue of David, as if they were Michelangelo, crafting their own art that is the embodiment of them projected onto the world. So is there any relationship there? And that's the anchor to this concept or a question of how do I even begin to identify what the hell my personal brand is?
The best way, in my opinion, the best way to identify what your personal brand is ask other people what they think of when they think of you. Whatever people say about you is really what your personal brand is. And so I have a colleague named Navari Carter. He's a branding strategist with Intuitive Create. And this is definitely his concept. It's not your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not around. And so one way to get an idea of that is you can actually get an idea of that through online listening through the internet. Put up a Google alert for yourself in your own personal name and see what's the dialogue around your name, around you. What are people saying behind your back, but in public?
That seems dangerous. I don't know if I want to know, to be honest. Oh, geez. Okay.
Some of that is like kind of crosses over into like reputation management, right? Or into online reviews. What are the people saying about you online? But you be a little more personal. You can literally ask your people who are going to give you the honest truth about who you are. It's usually family and friends close friends that will feel free to not worry about your feelings.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Okay. Huh. So I guess if the listeners are stuck here, because I mean, this is step one, is identifying what your brand is. Who do you want to be? There are some people, for example, in the sales space, there's a guy named Keenan. And I think literally for the last 50 years, he has worn the same red plaid shirt everywhere in his photos, on stage, on film, probably at the office as well. And that has become his identity. So this is really, is it correct to think of personal branding as something like identity selection and then projecting that onto your social channels, et cetera?
So that's kind of the visual part of the identity, right? Your personal brand. Some people use, wear a certain color of glasses. Some people, have a hair color. Like there's some social media gurus, their hair color is a bright green, or it's a bright purple, and that's part of their kind of visual identity. Other people, I know some people in the salon space that are heavily tattooed, and so it's really part of their personal brand. You go into their salon, and it's very organic. It's very tattoo friendly, I guess you could say. And so that's part of who they've identified, who they are, and who they attract. And so it's kind of like who you are, and who we're not monolithic creatures. I'm pretty diverse in my own, what I see as my own personal brand. I have this bluegrass side of my personality, but I'm also a Harley Davidson rider. I'm very geeky and into the internet and more nerdy things. But I also love international jazz. I have some friends that are Marcus Johnson is a close colleague of mine, internationally acclaimed jazz musician here in the Central Maryland area. And so it's really kind of like who you want to be is like who you hang out with. And then what you're talking about is that visual identity of things. Like, do you want to have like a trade, kind of a visual personal trademark that is, a baseball hat or color. That's all that all goes into it. Like figuring out who you are, who you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah, I just turned 34 and I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So I don't think that ever goes away. I think we should be exploring new curiosities that we have that are little inklings in the back of our head, which actually has me thinking as a part of this identity or branding architecture or selection, let's say, is it fair then to say, for those that are struggling to figure out what their own branding is, because to not do this, you just become noise. You become another pebble on the beach that does not differentiate at all. That's why we do this, is to stand out, right? To be distinct from the noise. Is it fair then to say, if someone's struggling and perhaps they've talked to their friends, hey, how would you describe me? And their friend's feedback is, I don't know, you're really nice. It's like, oh, that's helpful. Thanks. Right? Or you ask the individual to maybe journal and write about their fantasies is the wrong term. Geez Louise. Their interests and curiosities, et cetera, and they still come up empty-handed. Is it fair to say that perhaps what they could do is look at who they revere or who they look up to or who they perhaps idolize, and then borrow from that? Because all art is theft at some level. Is that another way that we can go about this identity architecture?
Absolutely. I think there's probably a dozen ways to get to who you are and who you want to be, regarding your personal brand. One of the things that if you look through my social media and my own website, you'll see a lot of musical related, stuff like the mandolin. And
Yeah.
I've gotten some negative feedback by that. Like they go to people, have had people go to my website and say, we thought you were a band. It doesn't look like you do web design. Your brand is confusing. But it's really a deep part of who I am. I've been playing bluegrass since college. Half the people on my SEO team are musicians, touring artists. Actually, my lead SEO manager is a professional singer-songwriter and tours across the country. And so it's really part of who we are as an agency. We do SEO for some entertainment brands. Like I said, we work with Marcus Johnson. We worked with Flutronics out of New York, a kind of an urban flute duo. But it's not a major part of our clientele. It is some of the clients we work with, but we're not just an entertainment brand. But they're very foundational. It speaks to me, the fact that I love music and it's a part of who we are as a company.
Wow. To me, this is vital because everything else that you will do is downstream of this. I don't know if you disagree, but it seems like everything is downstream of this because this is what breeds the instantiation of your values. Do you do refunds? Within what time frame? Is that a part of your values? And it's all related to your identity selection. So I think it's vital, and the listeners should certainly do that. And listeners might even benefit from doing different personality tests like the Big Five personality tests, the Myers-Briggs, the Enneagrams, et cetera, and then allow that to influence the shape that you take the clay that is you and mold it into, like Nietzsche says to do. So anyway, I think we've probably riffed on this enough. We might be boring some of the audience to tears, although I think it's fascinating if no one else is, at least. So why don't we pivot to some of these other light topics that we have carved out. So what is next on your list? I have an idea here, but I want to see what you've got before I blather further.
I'm open to feedback.
Okay. So we talked a bit about the visibility online as an individual or business. I think that's actually more related to your personal branding. So why don't we, unless there's a note there that I'm forgetting, because I think that was more about the branding piece. In fact, it was the local, niche, and national directory stuff. So these are some of the easy wins that listeners can or viewers can bolt on to get some additional visibility. So as far as the local niches and directories that we spoke about prior to the show, can you maybe mention some of those and how to get on those listings?
Well, the number one that all your listeners are probably familiar with that they should get on and fully utilize is a Google Business Profile, formerly known as Google My Business. They just rebranded in the last 2 months. So it's no longer Google My Business, it's Google Business Profile, GBP. But one of the cool things I like to talk about regarding that platform, instead of just setting it up and letting it go, really that's really your website on the Google platform. And since Google occupies over 90% of the search market, you really want to maximize that platform. That's really where you're going to rank first locally on the internet, even if you have a website, because it's on the Google platform. And so there's 4 primary ways you can actually rank on Google from your Google Business Profile. This is kind of not well known. This is well known in the SEO industry, but it's not well known among business owners. And so I can briefly give you the kind of the 4 ways that people should really be paying attention to. The first one is your business name. Now you might think, well, the name is the name, how is that going to help me rank? You can be very creative. A 2022 strategy for your own business name is potentially creating a DBA that is keyword friendly. And so a DBA is a legal term for doing business as, right?
Yeah. Okay.
And so the name of the business, people know this and they try to kind of spam Google with some inappropriate content. Like if you see a Google business profile that says, let's say it says Salon Phoenix, Arizona. Likely their name of the business is not Salon Phoenix, Arizona. They put in Phoenix, Arizona in the Google business name because they know that they're going to show up page 1 of Google because they put that city name next to their business name in the Google platform. However, that's a violation of the terms of service of Google. You can only use your legal business name. So to get around that, you can literally create a legal DBA with those kind of keyword friendly names. And it will get you on page 1 legally in Google for keywords. And so I did this myself for my business. So the name of my company is Loebig Ink, LLC. There's nothing SEO friendly about my name unless you're in Germany. And even there, still a name. It's not a keyword. And so I decided to test this theory out with my own business. I created a legal DBA as Loebig Ink SEO and web design. And I put that on my website. I actually linked if you look at the bottom of my website, you'll see the DBA name at the bottom there. And I've actually linked to the legal documents showing that I have a legal DBA. And then I used that to populate the Google business profile. I started showing up page 1, number 1 in Google within 2 weeks of that process in Silver Spring, Maryland. And same thing with web design. I went from page two of Google, which is where page 2 of Google. They said, yeah, exactly. That's where websites go to die.
Yeah,
right, on page 1, you forget about it. So I went from page 2 to page 1. I think position 3 for web design. First web design Silver Spring. I'm based in Silver Spring, Maryland. And check this out. So the day I went to page 1 with those 2 terms, I got 2 clients called me up because they found me organically. So it works.
Wow. Okay, listeners, can we explain to the listeners why this is so damn important? Yes. Why ranking in Google, if it's not glaringly obvious to half the audience, but for others that maybe don't understand why this is important, can you tell them why that's important?
So Google is the 90-pound gorilla in the room. That's where most of the internet, search traffic is going to come. If somebody's searching for something on the internet, Google is the default browser for a lot of applications, and it's the preferred browser. Like I said, if the search market, it's literally 90+% worldwide, especially the United States. Bing is like 5% of the search market. Like people searching.
Sorry, what's Bing?
But I wouldn't ignore it though. I wouldn't 5%.
Sure.
It's built into the Microsoft browser, Microsoft Edge, of course. So that's where people are when they're searching for businesses. They're searching for local salons. If they're there's even some. We can talk a little bit about Apple Maps and what's happening there with search. There's some new things on the horizon with searchability on Apple Maps because that's Apple is different than Google. There's Google Maps. There's Apple Maps. Apple Maps is built into the iOS platform, right? And so they're actually doing some strategic things, and you can take advantage of it as a business owner. We'll talk about that in a second. But getting back to Google, that's kind of like where that's where you're going to get your first traffic. That's where you will get on page 1 of Google. That's where people, if they're physically close to you, if somebody's physically, if they're searching on their phone, and they're searching for hair salon Bethesda, and your business is in Bethesda, they're physically in Bethesda, they're searching on their phone, Google sees the IP address of their phone, they're going to show them the salons physically closest to where they're searching. And so that's why you want to be that's why you want to have this Google business profile, because then you'll actually be able to compete against the big salon providers that have been there for 10 years that have 1,000 clients. If they're physically closer to you, you're going to outrank them because Google wants to show the local results. Long answer to short question.
I sense that the Google business profile, which is the new term, correct? Mm-hmm. GBP.
GBP, okay. Correct.
That GBP is something that most of our audience, or I don't know, everyone in our space thinks, oh yeah, that's easy. I get it. I'm doing it. I've already done it. And then you look at their profiles and they're like half complete.
Right. Yep.
So this might be a dumb question, but the answer to the question that is, how much of this profile should I build out?
Everything.
The answer 100%. Is obviously everything,
all of it.
Right. Okay.
Everything possible. But there's also some key strategy that people don't think of to get even more value out of that. So if you are a service-based business, which salons are, so they're kind of, unless you sell products, then you're both products and service. But a lot of salons, beauty providers are service-based businesses. One of the things that you can do is there's two ways you can put your services in a Google business profile. You can list the services, but you can also list products. And so people assume that the products are just physical products like shampoo bottles, retail things. However, if you're a service-based business, you can list your services as the products on that profile. And the reason you want to do this is because the products are actually showing up in the organic search results on a desktop. The services do not show up on a desktop. They're like hidden in the mobile view. And so if you want to have more visibility on a Google business profile, put your services as your products in the Google business platform. You will get more visibility. You'll get clicks. You'll be able to, you'll get business as a result of that.
So list your services as products.
Yes.
And the reason for that is because it'll populate on the desktop. Is that what?
Yes, it'll populate in, if you go to the desktop version of Google and you search for a business, you have the knowledge panel on the right-hand side, that business knowledge panel. And so that business knowledge panel is what's populated by Google business profile. So right now you're looking at the Maps version. If you go, and actually that Maps version there too is populated by the Google business profile. Let's go over to, you want to do this live on the?
Yeah, let's do it.
web?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go to, let's see, click. So we're looking at the map view right now. Let's go to just the organic searches, organic search version. It's like type in, yes, something there.
Okay.
Scroll down. So what you're seeing there is the local pack. That's the Google local pack. Let's type in one of those businesses. Let's type in the search bar up there at the top, type in Oasis Day Spa in the search bar. So we can see their knowledge panel on the right-hand side. So right there on the right side, there's the knowledge panel. And so if you scroll down to see there's questions and answers, let's see if they've done the services as products. So they haven't done it. When you put services as products on the knowledge panel, it'll actually show up there right in between, right above from Oasis Day Spa. It'll be right below. I think it'll be like below the reviews. It'll show up as extra content. You're basically taking up additional real estate on the Google search results by having your products on there, your services listed as products.
Interesting. So that would populate below reviews, and that's only when you put your services in the product section, which they have listed here, products and services, which is this is just always a hyperlink to their website, I'm assuming, typically.
Yeah. Yep.
Interesting. So the hack here really is, if you want to eat more space on the SERP, so the search engine results page that you see, which is the first result you see when you type in whatever Google, so the SERP, you can eat up more real estate by doing that. Wow.
Yep. If you want to see a live example, you could search for Loebig Ink LLC, and then you'll see how I have it set up. Let's see where it says products. It's right towards the top there.
By the way, listeners, viewers can see this, but listeners, Brian has 100 5-star reviews.
That's correct.
Insane. That's insane. Okay.
The
guy knows his stuff.
Those are real reviews too. Those are not like fake reviews.
Good God, that's wild. Okay, so where am I looking here? Right here? Is this right?
No, scroll up farther. It's like towards the top. Right there it is. Products.
Oh, okay. So I see. So you link to, are these videos then, or?
Well, click on it. So you get a little pop-up of what you've populated. That's what I put into Google Business Profile for the different services I offer. And I give a little, like, my entry level fees in there. So it's, the low, you want to put, kind of the lowest cost stuff that you have available so somebody will reach out to you. That's my strategy.
Wow. This is a great hack. Are there any other hacks with your GBPs along these lines?
The other thing, so the DBA, the business manual, was the main thing. The other thing is the business category. So let's go back to Oasis. So let's see what their category is. It should show up there. Day spa. So it's I think their business category is officially day spa. Let's go to the Maps version of that. So click on the Maps tab. Yeah, day spa. So see the primary category underneath the 4.6 stars.
Yep.
So they've chosen day spa as the primary business category. That's a significant ranking factor in your Google business profile to show up in Google. You can have probably, I'm not sure the maximum number. I think I have like a half a dozen different business, different categories listed for my business. Only one of them shows up, but you can actually list up to, it's at least a half a dozen. So for my agency, I'm listed as a web designer, marketing agency, IT something, graphic design. So you can actually list all the different categories that are available that are relevant to your business. You need to list them in your Google business profile. Only one primary one will show up, but all of them have equal ranking of impact for somebody searching for those type of services.
Wow. Yeah, because I bet you. Yeah, go ahead.
You might think that one of the things that you can put in the Google business profile, you can put services in the Google business profile as well, but those have actually zero ranking factors. It's kind of counterintuitive. Like you can add tons of services and details and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't have any ranking impact. What does have the ranking impact are these four simple things. It's your business name, it's the number and quality of your reviews, it's the business categories. And then the fourth thing is business attributes, like special attributes, such as Black-owned business, woman-owned business, LGBTQ friendly. Those specific attributes are actually the fourth type of ranking factor that's really significant in Google business profiles.
Yeah. So here's an example. The number 2 result for salon, when I typed this inside of Google in Denver, and the GBP is missing their website.
Yeah, that's
the eyeballs are landing here, yep. And they're splatting on the windshield at 90 miles an hour with nowhere to go. So how are they going to convert these people?
Well, they do have the phone number in there, so that's a good thing. So hopefully the phone number is correct.
So I think this is just a glaringly obvious instance of low-hanging fruit that people can optimize like today to increase their organic ranking when people search for keywords in their neck of the woods. That's very, very helpful. Thanks for sharing that. Okay. One of the other things that you mentioned was texting, a texting hack with Google Voice.
Oh, right. So so one of the things that I have a couple of beauty clients that over the years, and one of the things that we experimented with really successfully, way beyond our expectations, was creating a text line phone number on the top of the website. So one of the things that SEO people like to do, especially Google ad people, is they want to have that phone number that's clickable in the header of the website, right? So one of the things we thought was, well, our primary customer base is millennials, and my daughter's a millennial, and she doesn't like to pick up the phone. She's like, "Why'd you call me? Just text me." And so we thinking about that, like, well, let's create a text line. Let's create a separate phone number. In fact, back then, Google Voice was free. Google Voice phone numbers were free. They have to pay $6 a month for them now, but it's worth it. So we create a Google Voice number that's connected to the business cell phone number. There's really the same phone, but you create a Google Voice number, and we put that in the header of the website. And we said, text us here or call us here. The week after we put the text number on there, they got a dozen text inquiries the first week, and it doubled the next week, and it doubled the week after that. They were getting an amazing amount of people, women, is like during the holiday, kind of the summer, wedding season, texting for inquiries, texting for pricing, all that kind of thing. Huge unexpected results of that. We thought it would be a good idea. It was like beyond our expectations.
By the way, listeners, when you double something every week, that is not linear growth. Mm-hmm. That's exponential growth.
Yeah, they had to hire a few more makeup artists.
Yeah, I bet they did. And they probably had to hire a new accountant, because they probably broke QuickBooks from just one little simple hack.
Simple thing. That's what I'm all about, is like, what are those simple things? What are those quick directories we can optimize or create that will bring us business? I'm all about even if I can't charge for it as an internet marketing strategist, like, I can just tell them to do that. They're going to be happy with me that I gave them this free advice, for them to show up on they start getting phone calls. That's amazing.
It's so cool. Gosh, so many of these things are, I mean, this whole suite of things that we've discussed today could be done in what? An hour?
Yeah, literally. This is like the low hanging fruit kind of stuff that can really, propel your business like above your competitors. This kind of stuff. I love it.
Wild. Well, I want to drift into the land of scary, murky, technical waters where I am probably in over my head, but I'm going to do my damnedest to elicit from you, or that's the wrong term, evoke, draw from, let's say draw from. I think elicit has me thinking of, well, not good things. I want to get into some of the technical things here that we were exploring before we started today. So we spoke about the Google Search Console. So listeners, if you don't want to get technical, drop out. This is probably going to go over your head, or at least your field of interest if you're not techie types. If you've got your glasses and your monocle close by, slap them on, buckle in. Here we go. So Google Search Console. How and why to authenticate. Let's see.
That's good.
Tell us about the Google Search Console.
How to authenticate your website with Google Search Console, and what is it?
That's right.
So people have often heard of Google Analytics. There's a lot changing with Google Analytics, not right now actually as well. Google Analytics, universal Google Analytics is going away like next year. Did you hear about this? They just made an announcement. It's like hot off the press. They made an announcement, I think yesterday. They're gonna discontinue the current version of universal Google Analytics I think it's in September of 2023. It's going to go away. So this is kind of hot news, like fresh off the press for your listeners. Like, I'll talk about how it relates and the importance of this in relation to Google Search Console. So the reason they're doing this is because of the new requirements. There's the way Google Analytics works is there's cookies involved. There's kind of permissions that are involved. In order to set up a Google Analytics account, you have to pass GDPR guidelines in order to, especially for European Union, and because it's literally putting cookies on people's computers in order to track, analytics. And so because of privacy concerns, it's one of the reasons it's going away. And so Google has recently created what's called GA4. When you create a new Google Analytics account, or if you have an existing one, you're going to have a message. The next time you log in there, you're going to see a notification across the top of your Google Analytics. It'll say Google Analytics is going away. Please upgrade to the new GA4. And so it's a new platform. It's a new way to look at your Google Analytics that is that doesn't require personal information and doesn't put cookies on people's computers, basically, in order to collect the data. It's much less intuitive. I'm still going through training myself on how to analyze and set up, the rules and the paths and the goals and that kind of thing. It'll probably bring me a lot of business because people are going to be confused when they look in there, like, what is it? How do we set it up? So it'll probably help my business as I learn it. But the reason I want to talk about that is because Google Analytics is one of those properties that is really required for a business to figure out what kind of traffic you're getting to the website. And Google Search Console is another one of those key platforms that every business owner should use for their business. And it's something you have to sign up for. It's not automatic. And so if you go into Google Search and type in Google Search Console, the first search result you click on that and you'll go through there and it'll go through an authentication process. And basically it's going to connect your website to Google Search Console. And the best way to do that is through like a TXT record on your DNS and your domain name services. You'll go in, it'll give you a little bit of code, and you can send that to your web developer, or you can watch a YouTube video and figure out what that is. And you want to put that TXT record on your DNS provider, like GoDaddy, for example, is one of the biggest DNS, domain name service providers. You'll put a TXT record in there, which will then kind of create a signal with Google Search Console that that you own this website and you can connect it to this Google Search Console platform. And so when you do that, it'll start pulling in all this special extra data that Google Analytics doesn't even provide. For example, like when we're building a new website, we always authenticate the website with Google Search Console, especially if we're doing SEO, if we're doing a lot of kind of content changes, linking changes, keywords stuff, meta tags, we're optimizing the meta tags. When we do all that work, we want Google to see that as quick as possible. And so the way to help Google see those changes, and even when we're doing blogging, it's a great idea to, after you publish a blog, to go into Google Search Console, and you can literally submit that new blog you wrote, or the whole website. You can submit the what's called the XML sitemap. You can submit that whole website sitemap of pages to Google Search Console, so that Google's robots and spiders will index those pages more quickly. And so that's kind of one of the major things we do. One of the major things we do is one of the final processes of an SEO plan is authenticate the website with Google Search Console, so that all your pages, all those changes you made to try to improve the visibility of your website, get indexed as quick as possible in Google itself.
So what is the impact of GA going away then? I'm assuming we're going to lose like our ability to retarget. What is the ramification or the impact going to be then of someone who has been reliant on GA historically?
I'm still learning it, so I don't know everything because it's still pretty new. However, it's I've been in both platforms, so the data is different. It's like you're not going to see the same user information. You're not going to see the bounce rate the same way. It's like a totally, it's basically, the way they explain it is you're able to see more richer data. You're able to see kind of user pathways. You'll be able to see conversion actions. It's a higher level of analytics really than what Google Analytics is currently providing.
So it'll be better.
You can bring me on to the next podcast when I go through the deep training myself.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to make a note to circle back to this topic post your own self-directed discovery and learning. So we'll make a note of that to come back to this. Cool. We talked a bit about manual actions and evaluating the performance of your website. So maybe speak to both of those, or either or both simultaneously, if you would.
Absolutely. So sometimes people come to me and they tell me, Brian, my website is no longer on Google, or when I search for my business, I'm not seeing it in the search results anymore. And so one of the first things we do, if that's true, I'll go in there and there's some ways you can use like a incognito browser to see if they're really not there. And then if that's true, the only way to figure out truly, you can do kind of, you can scan the website and see if there's any malware in there, but a lot of really tricky malware is not readily visible in the back end of like most websites. It's like hidden in the code. And so what you can do is, if you've authenticated your website with Google Search Console, in the left-hand kind of navigation of there, if you scroll down to the far bottom, there's a thing called security and manual actions. And so a manual action is actually where a Google employee that's on the Google search team, they've gone in and they have basically put a manual action against your website because there's something going on with your website that's harming people when they visit it. And so it's a very common thing if you get malware on your site. And if you have a WordPress site, you're pretty much guaranteed to get hacked eventually. Most of the clients I have gotten hacked or have gotten spam, content or comments in their website. And so, if you have your blog open to comments and you're not monitoring those comments, it's easy for a spammer to go in there and put a malicious link to another website. Google will actually see that, and if they see you're sending people to a well-known malicious website, they will do a manual action against your website and remove you from their search results because they don't want anybody to get harmed, right? And so the only way you can figure out as a business owner is through this Google Search Console. You go down, you click manual actions, you see if there's a manual action. If there is, they'll give you some guidelines on what to do, on how to clean that out, and then you have to resubmit your website to Google to saying, I cleaned it up and here, please check it again. And so get me back online on Google, I should say. You're probably still online, but you want to get back into the Google search results.
So is it a good practice then to do a sweep through, let's just call it GSC for sake of simplicity, so the search console?
Mhm.
Is it a good practice then, or what would be a good practice then, rather, to comb through this to ensure you don't have any manual actions against your site?
I think it's something every business owner or their admin person, if you have like admin staff or your social media person, once a month, go through there and just look at some of the top things. It'll take literally 60 seconds. You go in and you can look at your performance, look at your manual action buttons, make sure there's no manual actions, um, and make sure, and then look for other errors. That's the other thing with Google Search Console. It'll show different kinds of errors you have on your website. Like it will show if you have 404 file not found errors. Like if you have like if you've removed pages or blogs and you have links, you had absolute links. There's difference between absolute links and relative links on a website. And so if you created a link to a blog that you then deleted or you changed the name of it, if you created an absolute link, meaning the full URL path to that blog from like another article, like https://www, if you created the full absolute URL and you remove that blog, somebody clicks on it, it's going to go to a broken link because that blog no longer exists, right? And so this Google Search Console will see those kinds of errors. It'll see that this link on this page is pointing to a 404 file not found page. And so that's another thing you can see in Google Search Console. It'll literally tell you like, here's the page that's linked, and this is you need that it's broken. It'll also show you there's some other. It'd probably be a whole nother show, but there's
I was just thinking, not to interrupt you, but we should park this, because I think what we need to do, because this is when we talk about it, the profundity of mastering GSC is, or rather the necessity of mastering it, at least getting your head around it, is something that we ought not treat lightly. So I'm wondering if we should, let's do this, because I do want to get through at least talking through some tools as well, to give some actionable resources, or let's say some resources the listeners can go sink their teeth into. But I think with GSE, I would like to do some prep as well on getting my hands underneath the hood of it, so to speak. And then I think we should do a full show where we do some visuals as well. You can maybe walk us through how to use it, the UI, blah, blah, blah. So if you're okay with that, because I think we both probably should spend a bit more time thinking about GSC, because I think this is something that would, if we can nail it, is going to give insane value to the listeners and viewers, in particular this next episode, to get ranked in Google, because this is the war of attention made manifest. If you're not on the first page of Google, you do not exist.
Truth.
You do not exist. So if you're okay with that, why don't we do that? And then let's touch on some of these tools that we talked about earlier, Majestic and Screaming Frog, and why we might want to use them, et cetera, and how, high level. And then the next show, we'll plan to do some visuals with screen sharing, that kind of thing. Because I don't want to treat this lightly. And I'm realizing that I'm not really prepared to, like I was scared of, get into GSC in particular, because it's a behemoth. And anywho, so if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do that. Okay. So tell me a bit about these tools that we discussed earlier before the show.
So some of the foundational tools that SEO people use, two of them that are really key, in my opinion, for a small business owner. So I like to think of tools that are really accessible and understandable from somebody who's not technical. And so there's one called Majestic. It's a majestic.com. And that it's a UK-based agency. It's a tool that basically looks at the quality of your backlinks. It's like a backlink referring domain kind of website. And you might ask, well, why do I care about links coming into my website? Backlinks and fresh quality content and the technical aspects of your website are the three kind of pillars of having good foundational SEO for a website. And those backlinks that's really what helps create the authority of your website. So if you're getting links back from, if you get if somebody does CNN does an article on you, that's not a paid advertisement, but they actually featured your business and they linked to you, that's going to be a really strong authority backlink that's going to drive traffic and eyeballs to your website. And so this Majestic tool will actually find and show you all the backlinks they're coming to your website. So you just, and it's it's kind of a freeware, version. They'll let you use it a few times for free, and then they'll want you to upgrade to use more of it more times. But if you just put your website in there, it'll immediately give you kind of your website's trust flow versus your citation flow. And the trust flow is kind of like how well the internet trusts your website. The higher this, it's 0 to 100. The higher the trust flow score, the more authority your website has, more visibility.
Okay.
The citation flow is where the concept of anywhere that your website is kind of mentioned on the internet. It's not necessarily based on backlinks. And so one of the things we do as an SEO team is to evaluate the quality of the links coming into your website. We want to look at what the trust flow score is of those websites coming into you, and then what is that relationship to the citation flow. The best situation is, well, those are fairly balanced. If you have a high trust flow and a high citation flow of a website linking to you, that's a good thing. If you have like a 0 trust flow website with a high citation flow, that's probably a spammy website. It's either a brand new website that's done a lot of directories or something, or it's literally a spam website that's linking to you. And so we actually make a decision based on that trust flow versus citation flow after we look at the website that's linking, to determine if that's a website we should quote unquote disavow in the Google Search Console so that Google doesn't kind of count it against us.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay. Wow. As we're talking, I'm also thinking we need to do a show on content creation strategy and backlink strategy, backlink generation strategy and that kind of thing. So I've got another 3 show ideas that we need to sink our teeth into. This is exactly what they need. The audience needs to understand, if you want to get to the front page of Google, it's where you dominate the traffic and you're on the right side of the power distribution. So I'm thinking like Pareto's principle and the distribution of 20% get 8% of the outcomes, or search traffic and whatever. You've got to be at number 1, number 2, number 3 tops, or top page rather. And Majestic is a helpful tool in doing that. I'm looking at the site now, looking at our own website for Artemis, looking at the trust flow and citation flow. This is fascinating data. So I'm wondering, would it make sense, Brian? Because I think the trouble with this topic as we're talking here is the listeners, they can't see anything. So I'm wondering if we should do, I hate to abruptly end a show because that's discombobulated feeling. I'm wondering if we should do another take on this, but do it with screen share so we can show the viewers what we're looking at. Otherwise, it might be difficult to track, let's say.
Yeah, it'd be helpful to see the trust flow, the citation, to see the referring domains and what that means. And that would be very helpful.
Okay. Well, let's do this in closing, because I think we need to, for the next, there's at least 3 other show ideas that I've just come up with. I think for the next shows, we're going to need to do a visual with a screen share, and then perhaps just release that on YouTube, because this is going to be difficult for the listeners to track with. So why don't we close on this note? Now, I know we've already given some insanely low hanging fruits, high impact type ideas for the listeners, which, again, to summarize, if I can do that, number 1, consider creating a DBA that is a keyword, and do what Brian did, where you link the proof of your DBA at the bottom or somewhere on your website where the crawler that is Google can find that and see that it's real. And then watch your ranking lift within, in Brian's case, 2 weeks. Easy win. Easy.
Literally.
Number 2, stand up a Google Voice number for texting and add that to your website for text specific inquiries, and watch the exponential growth fall on the backside of that, or fall on the backside of that. Number 3, consider your personal branding. Do a deep dive on that. What did I miss? There was a 4th high impact idea here, and I feel like I'm forgetting it.
We talked about a couple of different things related to Google Business Profile, business categories, the attributes, the reviews. What else?
Yes, that's right. Listing your services as a product.
Yes.
and really spending the time to accurately. We're not trying to advocate that you be dishonest with your profile, but build it out to where it's fully complete, because the game is to consume as much of the SERP's real estate, which is what the listing your services as a product on the GBP will do, so that you can own that to where eyeballs are drawn to your profile as they scroll up and down the SERP. So I think if listeners, if you just take away those actionable insights, I mean, in the case of Brian's, you said one of your customers or clients stood at the texting alone, and they saw a doubling of their bookings every week
for the first 3 weeks that they implemented that strategy. I'm not saying that's going to work for everybody, but that's a pretty good anecdotal story.
That's a pretty damn good anecdotal story indeed. Wow. Okay. Well, Brian, I know we had intended to get into some of the more techie stuff, but I can't move off the idea that I think we need to show this for it to be high impact. And I haven't prepared to do that. So listeners, I'm sorry this is an abrupt ending and awkward feeling, but maybe Brian, is there anything else that we should share with the audience today that is high impact and easy to stand up that comes to mind, or pro tips or anything along those lines as we downshift here to prep for the next show, which will be better prepared for visually? This is my fault, listeners, so you can send me your hate mail. Not
from
Brian's fault.
Another kind of 2022 SEO strategy that I point all my clients to now. One of the really creative ways to and easy. I love easy and creative, to get a high quality backlink to your website. If backlinks are, the juice or the engine to increase your visibility online, one of the ways in 2022 that's working really well is through sponsorships, local sponsorships, and those can be paid or unpaid. So for example, like if you're involved with your church, if you're involved with a nonprofit organization, if you're a member of a chamber of commerce, those kinds of links from those kinds of local, businesses and websites, if you sign up and sponsor, even a local sports team, local kids, grade school art event, if they can highlight your business on there and put a link on their webpage back to yours, that's a 2022 high impact backlink strategy that has major SEO results. It's very attainable, and it's also very hard to copy because your big national competitors are not going to have the relationships with the local high schools, with the local chambers of commerce. And so that's a really strong 20. I have some clients. So another anecdote, I have some clients that is their entire strategy, is to sign up for local chambers of commerce. I have a website. I have a web page of all the local chambers of commerce in the DC, Maryland, Northern Virginia area. There's about 45 or 50 of them. And their strategy is literally joining all these chambers of commerce. It's a fee, there's a fee, but that's literally how they're building authority for their website, and it's working. And they're doing no other SEO. They're literally sign up for chambers of commerce and sending this traffic, and it's resulting in significant traffic to their website, because their authority of their website is going through the roof because Google sees all these local ranking signals from these local chambers of commerce linking back to them.
Wow. Okay, well, I think this is actually perfect. Here's why. Audience members, listeners, viewers, I know we deviated from our initial goal today of getting into some of the really techie stuff, but I think we've given you a massive amount of easy to implement, high impact strategies and tactics to deploy today, not tomorrow, today, tonight, to produce meaningful change in terms of your ranking in Google, et cetera. So I would challenge you all to take what Brian has shared with us today, which is, by my estimation, complete gold, and stand it up and implement it ASAP. And on the next episode, we're going to get into some of the more technical stuff with some visuals so you can follow along. And this will be on YouTube and elsewhere, I'm sure, so that we can give it a proper treatment. But I think this has been extremely high impact. And Brian, I'm glad that I'm glad that we connected, number one. And number two, these are things that people would not have thought of. So I'm so grateful that you've shared this with us. And I'm very, very excited to have you on for round 2 and hopefully 3, 4 and beyond. But let's not leave the listeners hanging, although that's exactly what we are doing, because we were going to get into the technical stuff, but that's okay. How can the listeners connect with you if they want to do so?
I mentioned that personal branding website at the beginning, right? About.me. That's a great place to, I like for people to connect with me how they like to connect. So I'm on every major social media platform out there. So connect with me however you're comfortable. So go to about.me/Brian Loebig, Brian. It's the correct way to spell Brian. And then Loebig, Loeb as in boy, IG. That's my about.me page. And then connect me on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook or TikTok or whatever.
Awesome. Well, Brian, I'm so excited. This is going to be, and this is the first joint co-creation of ideas and, well, your ideas, content, let's say, of hopefully many listeners. I apologize for leaving you hanging, but we will have Brian back, and we will share with you some high impact technical stuff, as both he and I, mostly me, get my teeth more sunk into Google Search Console. And then we'll do a deeper dive into some of the tools and how you can actually do things like utilize Majestic and some of these other tools to do your own sort of DIY marketing. And then eventually you're going to realize I should just hire Brian. You might just call him to do it for you. But we want to give you some DIY stuff that you can do that's self-directed here. And we'll gear up to do another episode here shortly on that very topic. So, wow, Brian, thank you for sharing all the stuff.
This is how I get some of those 100 reviews, because I give a lot of good free advice. And I'm like, well, if you liked it, leave me a review.
Go leave Brian a review. Yeah, exactly. Or just better yet, call him, connect with him on TikTok or whatever. And TikTok. And LinkedIn and what have you. Geez Louise, I'm getting old. I can't even say the damn social channel. Yeah, Brian, we'll have you back on here soon. And listeners, go do what we've shared. It'll be high impact, I'm certain. So Brian, on that note, thank you for being on. We will have you on again here very soon. Calendar's conducive. And until then, be well.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
All righty.